And we're back with part 2, which is the AL Central. Now, if you haven't seen the first part, which is the AL East, I will give you a link to that posted below. You can go check that out, and if one of your teams is on there, you can go check out and see what I thought about your team. So, without any further ado, let's continue on and talk about the AL Central, one of the most competitive divisions I think there will be this year. And let's start from the bottom up like we did last time so we can build suspense up. So we're going to start at 5, and we're going to start with the Kansas City Royals, losing Zach Greinke and Gil Mesh in one offseason. Gosh, that really hurt the starting rotation. And they only got Luke Hochvar as their only pitcher. Doesn't look good for the Royals because they don't even have much of a pitching staff in the minor leagues. The only positive things about this team is Joakim Soria's back, probably the best closer in baseball, arguably. And you've got a nice, young, talented team. You got in the Zach Greinke deal, you got Alcides Escobar, a shortstop who I like, and Lorenzo Cain, a nice center fielder. But you also got 2 players of your own in your farm system, an Eric Hosmer, first baseman, and the highly touted third baseman, Mike Moustakas. If I said his name wrong, I'm sorry, my bad. I really like those 2. I think they could be the future of that lineup. It's just hard to predict those things. But at the same time, you got Wilson Bettamy coming back, who really had a breakout year with that team. Not to mention you brought in Jeff Francoeur for right field, which I thought was a great ad. You got talent. It's just going to take a while to build. I do not see them competing anytime soon. Probably maybe 3 years down the road. But not like my 4th place team, which I think will contend maybe as early as next year, and that's the Cleveland Indians. And it's all about the youth. All about youth there. Yes, the offense starts with Shin-Soo Choo and seeing how Grady Sizemore and Travis Hafner come off of injuries. I think the big things for the Indians are seeing how Asdrubal Cabrera does this year, along with seeing how Carlos Santana continues his progress. See if Matt Laporta builds as a star first baseman, we're hoping, and Michael Brantley as your leadoff guy, and most importantly, and a guy who I'm going to say by June is going to have a huge impact, Lonnie Chisenhall. Absolutely phenomenal hitter. He's got a great swing, great approach. I saw him against some top pitchers, and he looked like he knew what he was doing. And he tore it up in spring. They just sent him down to work on his defense. He's converted shortstop. Only played junior college ball, but he was one of the most touted junior college guys when the Indians got him. And you look at the pitching staff, led by Fausto Carmona. We all know he's a solid pitcher. We heard about the trade rumors. I don't think that's going to happen. Too much of a deal that the Indians control for the most part. In that rotation, you've got Justin Masterson returning after another solid year, Carlos Carrasco, Mitch Talbot, and a guy who I hope will be up by the end of the year, and I think he could star next year, Alex White. Nice pitcher out of North Carolina, too. The best part for the Indians, strongest part, is the bullpen. They got their closer in Chris Perez, who I think is going to have a breakout year this year. They stole him from the Cardinals. That was a great move. Some ads, Orlando Cabrera, Austin Curtis, nothing big. Brings me to my 3rd place team now, the Detroit Tigers. So now we're on the top 3 teams. So we know the Tigers aren't going to win a division, so we're going to find out who wins in just a minute. But let's talk about the Tigers. You gotta look at this team and you think it is talented, but you look at the players, there are some injury and personal risks that this team has. Yes, Miguel Cabrera got pulled over. He's got that problem. Hopefully he doesn't do it during the season for them because that could really screw him up. But I think Miguel's going to come in this year. He's going to want to prove everybody wrong. He's going to have an MVP type season. I don't know if he wins it. So we'll see from that. Victor Martinez arrives. I think he's going to be solid there. I don't think he's going to put up the same numbers because he's used to hitting in a decent hitter's park. And he really did well in Boston. I don't know how well he's going to do in Detroit, but he's always one of my favorite players. Brandon Bosch, I want to see how he does this year. He had a great rookie season. Hopefully he can build on that. And the big key here, on top of the injury factors of Carlos Guillen and Magli Ordonez and those guys, the key is Austin Jackson. Can he build off of what he did last year and truly become the true leadoff guy? The pitching staff, Verlander, Scherzer, leading the way, Brad Penny, Mike Porcello, and you got Valverde closing, which they finally got a solid closer. Hopefully that bullpen just doesn't get injured for them like it normally does. So yeah, that's a little bit about the Tigers. Obviously, big ad was Victor Martinez, but don't count out Joaquin Benoit. That was a nice ad there. The big loss, Jeremy Bonderman and Johnny Damon, who I thought would have been a great person to keep around for that team. Veteran presence that I really think they could have benefited from. Now we come to my second place team, and I think you're going to be surprised who I have here, and you're going to assume who I have winning the division next. My second place team, the Chicago White Sox. That means, yep, they won the division again. But we'll get to that in a sec. One thing when I think about the White Sox is power. Oh my God, do they have power. You get Adam Dunn. I mean, he's going to love U.S. Cellular Field. I think he's going to easily hit 40 home runs. And I think he could have a high average this year. This could be the year he gets that high average. You put him with Konerko and Carlos Quentin. Jeez, I would not want to pitch to any of them. And I have to choose which one I'm pitching to. God, I can't pitch them. And now that you've got Alex Rios back in the form, jeez, that is going to be really, really tough. And you got a catalyst up there at the top with Juan Pierre, and you still got Alexei Ramirez. Gordon Beckham is still a solid player, so I mean that offense is going to be very tough to stop. And the pitching staff is just as good, especially if Jake Peavy comes back strong. Burley, Gavin Floyd, John Danks, Edwin Jackson, just those four alone is a solid staff. You had a great and you had a healthy Jake Peavy. Oh my gosh, that's going to be tough. Only problem, who's closing? If that is ever settled, they might win the division. I can't guarantee anything, but you know. Now let's get to my first place team, and that's the Minnesota Twins. And why wouldn't you pick them? Every year we say, oh, this is the year they're going to fall off. Every year they find a way. And guess what, people? Joe Nathan's coming back. And until he does, Matt Capps is the closer, which, by the way, he closed for a bad Pittsburgh team. So, and he looks solid there. So you got a nice guy there. Pitching staff, solid. Francisco Liriano, who I think could be a Cy Young candidate. You get Carl Pavano back. You got Scott Baker. You got Kevin Slowey. And the breakout pitcher, Brian Dunsing, who had a great year last year. The offense could be just the same. Jim Thome, 12 homers shy of 600. I think he's going to be the DH this year. You got Morneau coming back. And you got Delman Young, Kadire, and Jason Kubel. Oh yeah, I forgot Joe Mauer too. All hitting around him. That's going to be a really solid offense. And the guy who I really like, a sleeper player I like, Toyoshi Nishioka. I like him. I really do. He is one shortstop I really like. So, yeah. So stay tuned. That's the end of my AL Central part. We're going to talk about the AL West, which I got some nice stuff to talk about there. So stay tuned.